My name is Katie Clinton. I was married at a very young age. My husband and I were just young kids when we got married. Fell in love. I was 18, he was 20, and we literally got married weeks after we met. As it turned out, I didn't really know the man that I had married. And as time went on, I began to learn just of some of his maybe character flaws. He would lose himself to anger, become very angry and abusive. And those were times when alcohol was involved. And this sort of became a routine in our lives where we were this happy family, everything was going great, and then we would have a storm roll in and a big blow up and some abuse, and then life would go on. And I didn't realize it at the time, but we were in an abuse cycle, because after one of those episodes, everything would be honeymoon and just so wonderful. So after 18 years of living that, and finally what really was the straw that broke the camel's back was an adulterous relationship. It was just too much, and our marriage finally ended in separation. We were in separation for almost a decade. So all of this time, we were Christians, we were believers, but we were dealing with these problems. And we were even in ministry and dealing with these problems. But it was something that was hidden. And so my husband and I separated. My husband and I had contact for about 6 years, off and on, and many times over those years, because of our 3 children, we would discuss divorce. Because we had been separated so long, that's normally the natural course of action that a couple would take. And every time he wanted to pursue divorce, he would say to me, Katie, you finish what you started. And I couldn't do it. I always would come to something that would stop me from taking that step, because deep down in my heart, I didn't want to divorce my husband. I still loved him. Even in the light of all those difficulties that we faced, I still loved that man with my heart. In 2006, 6 years after we initially had separated, I had an opportunity to travel and take a trip through Central and South America. I went for it. It was during my trip south, when I got back to Honduras, where our family had been missionaries years before, that the Lord accosted my heart. I met a man one day. I was backpacking, single woman, through Central and South America, and sitting on buses beside people that I could talk to, sitting in restaurants, walking down the street, meeting people that I could converse in Spanish with. And one of the young men that I met was attending a church, invited me to a service. His name was Raimundo, which means King of the World. And he invited me for coffee after the church service. And he asked me a question. He said, "What's wrong in your life? What's wrong in your heart?" And I said, "Raimundo," I said, "absolutely nothing. I'm on this amazing journey. I'm traveling across the country with a backpack, meeting people, growing my Spanish skills. I'm sharing the Lord with people. I'm a missionary. I've never been better." "Well," he said, "I'm looking right into your eyes. Even though you say that, I can see that something's not right there." He told me, we have a saying in Spanish, "Piedra en tu zapato." You have a stone in your shoe. And he said, it's like having a stone in your shoe and you're running down the road and it's causing you discomfort and even pain maybe, but you just ignore it and you just keep going. And he said, I think you have a stone in your shoe. And you have had it so long, you don't even realize it's there. And I said, no, that's not my story, Raimundo. And I quickly ended our conversation that night with him, and I returned to my hotel room. And as soon as I opened the door and went into that hotel room, I physically fell onto the floor. And I just broke before God, because I knew that Raimundo hit it bang on. And I began to weep before the Lord, and I began to pour my heart out. And all of the tough exterior that I had created for myself, it just broke. My pride broke, and I wept before the Lord, and I wept for my failed marriage, and I wept for my children, and I wept for all the disappointment that I was carrying in my heart, because indeed I did have a stone in my shoe. I had stayed on my face before the Lord through the whole night, but it was a God-ordained time for me to get that thing right in my heart. I had to take responsibility for leaving my covenant partner when he needed me at his lowest moment in his life. And so that night on the floor, I waited for the sun to come up so that I could go to the internet shop and contact my husband, who was living in Cabo. And I just choked back tears as I asked him for forgiveness for my part in the end of our marriage. I said, we need to be face to face. We need to talk this through. I need to look into your eyes and tell you what I'm feeling, what's going on in my heart. And he denied me. I began to pray a lot and just seek the face of the Lord for my future and the future of my marriage. At first, maybe I thought that meant finalizing the divorce, but the Lord began to show me that no, it was reconciliation that he intended for us. And for the next 3 years, I would stand and believe God for the covenant of my marriage that I had entered into with my husband. When you hear the voice of God, it releases faith in your life. Faith to believe and to hang on through difficulties, through trials, through disappointments, through long nights, through unanswered prayers. And what I said to the Lord finally was, I will stand for my marriage for the rest of my life. In other words, I will walk out the covenant of marriage no matter what my husband does. My husband chooses to divorce me and marry someone else. In my heart, I will still consider myself his covenant partner till death do us part. So in 2009, through a series of events, my husband and I came back into contact with each other. He told me that he was willing to give our marriage another chance. And my husband and I are currently pastoring now in Edmonton, and so thankful for God's faithfulness in our lives. A covenant is a picture of God's love for us. It never ends, never fails. It was God's idea. The reconciliation thing was not Katie Clinton's idea. It was God's idea.